Welcome back to Rides and Drives Team Radio. I'm Harvey. I'm here with Jeff. Kaz made it to Spain, but it wasn't ready to hop on at 2:30 in the morning, so we'll let her sleep in. Jeff, let's talk about today's race because actually I was very surprised by the way it went.
Really? I kind of from lap 20, I kind of thought, oh, Alex has this in the bag.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely from lap 20. But leading into the race, having heard everyone talk about it, I thought this was going to be a dogfight throughout the race because they're all like
yeah.
qualifying so close. Everybody's so good.
Yep.
I was expecting to see more and more competitive racing near the front of the grid, and obviously we didn't see that today. Once Alex made that overcut, got the lead, was able to step away on those soft tires, there was only one slight challenge when Felix was kind of catching him at that one point, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Leading in, we did expect to see a little bit more of a fight for the lead. But I think where I was going to say where Alex really had it over the others was with team strategy.
Yeah.
His strategy was flawless throughout. And I did get a chance to ask Will Power about, was the saving the Reds for the later in the race, was that a strategic decision to try and, shake up, right? If your opponent is doing strategy A, you're gonna try strategy B to see if it works on them. And he seemed to think it was, well, A, it was a team decision, not his. And I think he would have rather used those red tires sooner rather than waiting until the last stint.
Yeah, I did see that, and he said it would have helped if we had had a yellow and a restart, right? But
Yeah, absolutely.
without
And that
that,
makes tons of sense.
yeah, without that, there was no way he was really going to catch him. And we saw that those tires were good for 10
Yeah.
laps. And then all of a sudden, he just started to drift back a little bit,
Hmm.
couldn't maintain the kind of pace he would need to catch Felix and plus they had that gaff with their pit stop, right? He
Yes.
he drove one lap too many because he missed the pit call, which is
Yeah.
interesting. You know, when you think about it, you listen to F1 radio and they're box, 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 whenever they want someone to come in. And it sounds like he
Right.
just said, "Hey, Will, you should pit now," one time, and he didn't get the message or whatever,
Right.
pit now, and he didn't get the message. It's like, what, I you can't over communicate in racing, I don't think, can you?
Um, I think at this professional level, you're right. They should offer more communication rather than less. At other levels, I think it's possible to distract your driver by
Yeah,
talking in their ear all the time.
true.
And then you can end up with the Kimi Räikkönen response. So, shut your mouth. I know what I'm doing. Uh,
We want more Kimi Räikkönen like responses, though.
I do. I
I
do.
could I could
Um,
definitely see Will being the Kimi Räikkönen of IndyCar.
oh yeah, he's been at this long enough. He's like not my first rodeo, pal. But one thing about today's race that I really wanted to bring up in the podcast is the absolutely vital importance of team strategist.
Yeah.
Here you have a guy who's looking at the race real time, everything from the track temperature to how the opposition is doing. You're talking about a guy who has to be aware of absolutely everything throughout the entire race and make changes to their strategy on the fly, right? Because they
Well,
all have a strategy going into the race.
yeah, and that was the interesting thing. I mean, they asked Alex what tires he wanted to go to on that first pit stop, and he said, "I want the
Mhm.
blacks." And they said, "Okay, we'll go to the blacks." And then the next lap around, they said, "No, we're going to go to reds." Right,
Mhm.
and overruled Alex on that. And it was interesting to hear that kind of back and forth that happens in the middle of the race like that. And obviously Barry saw something that said,
Mhm.
if we get on the reds now, we can get this overcut done, we can stretch a lead, and
Mhm.
then we can just play the long game after that, right?
And I think those strategists are really unsung heroes, right?
Hmm.
Nobody throws confetti and champagne at the strategist. But what an exciting job to have in an IndyCar team, and how much did that strategy help Alex win today? And I think a big part of being a good team strategist is understanding your driver's strengths.
Right.
And I think their strategist really knows what Alex could do, and that, yes, he can take it that extra lap for the overcut. He can, well, like later in the race when they said, we want you to do 8 more laps on the reds. And he's like, oh, easy.
Yeah.
They know that they can do that.
Right. And uh, so, Alex wins again. 6
Yes.
race wins this year. The closest competitor has 2. He's now up 110 points in the championship. Um, he has it all but locked up. Um, but I don't see, especially based on his comments in the press conference, them playing it safe for the rest of the season, right? He said in the press
Yeah.
conference, someone asked him about, I think it was David Land who asked him,
Mhm.
you said last year was a magical season and it'd be hard to do better than that, but you're all, you could do better than that. And he said, and Alex said, yeah, last year was magical, but maybe we can improve it this year. So
Mhm.
maybe they go for 9 wins this year. Who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
5 races left, and 2 of them on new street courses where nobody knows anything. Um, to me,
Yeah.
that favors the best driver in the field, right?
It's wide open. And as you pointed out before we recorded the podcast, the only thing that can really hurt him now is a DNF.
Right.
And so, I think if I was in his position, I'd go ahead and keep trying to win, but just hold back
Well,
that last 1% so I
yeah,
don't end up with a DNF.
I think the easiest way to avoid a DNF is to drive from the front, first of all.
Yes,
So that
be
means
out in front where you have.
qualify well, So obviously they're going to put a huge emphasis on qualifying because what you don't want to be is starting a race mid-pack, and having people around you that you don't know and trust as much, right?
Well, yeah.
So yeah, so I think it puts a premium on them as a team on qualifying for the rest of the season. It's funny, everybody talks about Alex being a road course or a street course specialist, and that's where he's strong. But, he won at Nashville, he's won at Indy.
Hmm.
Last year, he was leading Milwaukee when Rasmussen passed him after making a good strategic call to put soft tires on with 20 laps to go. He was the only one who did that and was able to, have better tires. And that's the reason he beat him on that track. So it's not like Alex can't race on ovals.
No, 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 certainly not.
Yeah. And then he
Um,
finishes at Laguna Seca, where his average finish, I think, over his career on that track is 1.7.
yeah,
So,
there's definitely there are more records out there to be broken. Um, but one of the things I wanted to say was how impressed I was that we had one 2-lap yellow flag period
right.
in this race, and that was it. And Graham Rahal was really the only serious stuff into a wall that anybody had, and he kept racing,
Yeah,
which
he was able,
impressed me
lucky
too.
enough, he just it looked like on the broadcast that it just, he hit the soft part of the tire barrier, just the very end of it
Mhm.
clipped it. It didn't do any suspension damage. So he was able to pull out, get back on, get into the pits, change his tires. A couple of other people made stops then, which threw an alternate strategy in, which would have been interesting had we had another yellow, right? But
Right,
we didn't.
right.
So those people never were able to cycle around.
Yeah, but if you compare this race to some others here at Portland,
Yeah, there was no
not to name
carnage in
any,
turn one.
not to name any 6-letter acronym uh, um, series names, but uh, like NASCAR.
Yeah,
But some of those races are just carnage fests,
yeah, yeah,
and And you want to, really hats off to IndyCar for running a very clean race that maximized green flag time today.
Yeah, I think the field of drivers, it speaks to the quality of the drivers in this field too, that
Mhm.
they know what they're racing for and what they're and who they're racing against and where the challenges are. And there were a couple places where people really did um, push going into turn one, the 1, 2, 3
Yeah.
complex and into 10, 11. I was shocked when Stingray Robb didn't give willpower,
Yes. Well,
the track at turn 10.
and Will was kind of bitter about that
Yeah,
at interview. He said it cost him 3 seconds or so.
yeah,
And um, and they discussed it. And interestingly, both Rosenqvist and Power were of the opinion that IndyCar ought to change its rules. If the
right,
leaders are coming up to lap you, you really ought to get a message, a blue flag and a message to get out of their way and not try to contest for the position.
right.
Um, Alex, on the other hand, when asked the same question in his interview, said, "Man, I don't care."
Yeah, it was like it's the same for everyone, so it's fair, right?
Yeah.
That was
And
basically his
sometimes you get
response, right?
And you can get balked by a lap car. You can use a lap car to balk another guy. And I think I saw Rosenqvist do that a little bit when he got by a back marker going into the chicane, into the
Right,
festival curves, as they call them, the Monty Shelton chicane. Um, and then stuck Power behind that car all the way through 1, 2, 3. The next real chance he would have had to get around him would be turn 4.
right.
Um, and that's key. And if you've raced enough here, you've used a back marking car
Yeah,
in that
and
way.
that's part of racecraft, right?
Yeah,
Is
it is. It's
knowing
very
when
much
to pass somebody and knowing not to pass them too soon on the front straight so you don't give your competitor a chance to come by, right? That kind of stuff.
right.
So it's interesting, but while Alex Palou won the race today, this podcast is not the Alex Palou show. We have a lot of other drivers to talk about today because
Yes.
I thought it was interesting. I watched the warm-up show on TV and Chip Ganassi was on the show and they talked quite a bit about the open seat that he'll have next year. And one of the drivers they talked a lot about was Rinus VeeKay. So,
Mhm.
everybody is talking as if that seat is Lundgaard's. I keep hearing, rumors in the paddock. Lundgaard's already met with, PNC and blah, blah, blah. But if VK keeps putting in performances like this, I don't know how you keep him out of consideration for a top seat.
Well, he certainly did well today. When he finished fourth, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
fourth. And so, obviously a strong contender for that. Lundgaard also put on a great performance, rising from the back of the field to 10th.
yep.
And he kind of made it up to 10th. I think he was as high as 7th at one point, but that was due to pit stops happening.
Right.
But really he settled into 10th position and that's where he stayed.
He finished
And
ninth. He ended up finishing
oh,
ninth.
nice.
So,
Okay.
but still, yeah, quality. Yeah, yeah, he did just pass Kiffin at the end because Kiffin's tires gave
Okay.
out on him. Yeah.
Right.
So, but
But he was in that 9th to 10th position for most of the race. And, I think it was an impressive run to get up there and pass everybody else and stay there. But you certainly cannot detract from VK as a driver with a lot of potential.
yeah, yeah. So it's going to be interesting. Those two guys, great days today. I really think they both strengthen their positions for next year. Obviously, neither of them at this point having a ride or a contract, so
Yeah.
that's going to be interesting. And I think it was a great day for Andretti, right? To have
Oh, yes.
the third, fifth, and six cars, right? So
3 out of the top 6 is always a good day.
yeah, that's a great day. Obviously, Will wanted to do better, wanted that
Mhm.
second position, I think they all said in the press conference that no one was catching Alex. Right.
Right. Yes.
So it's interesting. Do you think it's a good? I want to take one more Alex Palou side thing here because we're talking about this. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing for the sport that he's so dominant?
I think it is a good thing, um, provided it doesn't go on forever.
Right.
Um, we love to have our heroes, and we love to see them do well, and we love to see just the skill, talent, and the coming together of a team that supports Alex the way that this team does. Um, and so, he reflects really the best of what IndyCar could be. Um, that being said, you start winning all the time, you start to expect to win all the time.
Right.
And and that the victory comes with its own curse that way. But you know, I think that it's what
Oh, I was just gonna
oh,
say,
it's
and it ultimately, yeah, the fans start to get bored, right? It's like
right.
they
Yeah,
want to
after a while it'll
see,
become boring.
right. It was a little like, Max Verstappen in F1 a couple of years ago. The interesting
Right.
thing, and I talk about this, is, yeah, Alex wins a lot of races, but today was a dominant performance, and he finished what 4 or 5 seconds ahead of the
Yeah.
next competitor. But he's not finishing 20, 30 seconds ahead the way
Right.
the way Max was when he was dominating in F1. And it was like no one even had a chance. And even races that he's won in many cases have been close. It hasn't been
Hmm.
that he's just got the pole, runs away with the race. It's still competitive racing. He just happens to have a team that makes the right call, the luck fall his way, and enough skill to put himself in front of everybody else when it matters the
Absolutely.
most.
Yeah, this was not a
So,
runaway victory.
right.
If you want to say dominant, okay, that's hard to
Yeah.
argue that he was dominant today. But he is, he's not the whole show.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah, 4 seconds is a big margin of victory in IndyCar lately because
yeah.
these cars are so close, and the drivers are so good. What that means is like all he has to do is one bobble, like he did last year at Mid Ohio when he was
Hmm.
leading,
Yeah.
and Dixon passed him. Right. So
Or one balk by a lap car,
right.
would take away a lot of that lead. I also want to say, unlike Max, Alex is likable.
Yeah, I have never met a world class athlete who is so genuine, so open whenever you approach him to talk to him. I mean, I've talked to him
Mhm.
several times throughout the season. First time I talked to him was on the grid at St. Pete before the race. I just, it was before he got in the car and he's standing there talking to other people. And I said, "Hey, do you mind if I ask you one question?" He says, "No, make it quick. Let's go." And he was happy to sit there and give a great answer to me. And every time I see him, he's like, that way with everybody. It's not an
Yeah.
act.
Well, it's got to be a great thing to be him right now. you know,
Yeah, yeah, I would think so. So we leave Portland now with obviously Alex having this, boy, talk about Freudian, having
yes.
this dominant lead. Um, we're going to Markham, which is a brand new track, street course,
Yes.
which should be interesting. I've seen the maps of it. It looks like it has some interesting features, a really tight hairpin, which could make for some interesting moments in the race. Um, and th- with everything that is in front of us, the other thing that I don't think anyone has talked about lately is the manufacturers championship, which is,
Mhm.
Honda versus Chevy, where Honda dominated last year, mostly because Alex was dominating. Um,
Mhm.
I'm not sure where we are this year in the championship points, but
I
Chevy
looked
has
at
not
that
had it.
on the big board.
Where are
I,
we?
I looked at it on the big board. It was 1,033 points for Honda versus 950, I think, or
Okay.
thereabouts for
So
Chevy. So it
still
was
within
closer
play.
than you might think. Yeah,
Yeah,
it could be decided. Yeah.
yeah, especially with the way the last few races have gone. I mean, today it was a Honda day, right? I mean,
Hmm.
Rinus was the highest placing Chevy. Obviously, the Penske drivers were down there, I think, seventh, eighth. Um, where did they end up? Yeah, seventh and eighth for McLaughlin and Newgarden. And Malukas finished a respectable 12th. Never
Hmm.
really got anything going today, but it felt like um, the Chevys just didn't have it today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. They weren't dominant, but you know what? I looked at the split after qualifying, and the Chevys raced better than they qualified.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so you know,
And obviously Lundgaard had a decent race with his Chevy engine. So
yeah, and nobody had engine trouble.
yeah, the only one was
Uh,
Armstrong again.
yeah, yeah,
He had a third DNF in 4 races with his engine,
yeah.
which is
So,
insane to have one driver have that many problems and have them cost him that much.
and that's I would be fairly certain that his team is going to do quite a detailed hot wash on that.
Yeah,
Why are we using up these engines? Is it the driver? Is it, which I doubt, because I'm sure these engines are, rev limited,
yeah, they
all of
can't,
that.
and the teams aren't allowed to touch them, right? Honda brings the
Right.
engine to
Yeah.
the team. You put it in, everything's sealed. You can't tune them. You can't. If you want something done to the engine, you have to call the Honda tech to come over and
Right. Okay.
work on your engine for you. So the question is, what's happening to them? That is it just incredibly bad luck, or yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but otherwise it was not a bad day for Honda.
No, no, not at all. One thing, if I could just make a hard left turn, one of the
Yeah.
things that I noticed was, specifically as sort of a, longtime resident here at PIR, is how much of a difference in the broadcast the drones made.
Oh
The
yeah.
drones, especially in the turns 4, 5, 6, 7 area where you don't get really good camera coverage. My God, they were fantastic. They were
Yeah.
they were HD clear, and just the right angle that you wanted, and an angle that you could only ever get with a drone. And
Yeah.
it really made that part of the track come alive and be that much more interesting. And so I just, wanted to mention, as people watch the coverage, just note the amazing angles and close-ups and really the communication of what's happening that you're getting from those drone shots.
Yeah, I think
So,
the addition of drones and obviously the improvement of quality of in-car and on-car cameras, right? Remember when
yeah.
those first came on and it looked
Oh,
like you were,
yes.
looking through a dirty fish bowl, you know?
Yeah.
And it would always, oh, there goes Alex. Hey,
Yes.
Alex, quick question for you. No.
Get on the
Um,
podcast.
yeah, let's have him hop on the podcast. But yeah, the quality of the cameras now being able to bring people right into the race to see what drivers see,
Yeah.
to see what it feels like going 175 miles an hour into the turn 10, 11 complex, and
Yeah.
all of that. I think it changes the game for race fans. And You know,
It
I think
does.
Fox does a really nice job. They still continue to drop a few balls today on the broadcast. When the yellow flag happened, we had six drivers, I think five or six drivers come in
Mhm.
to do pit stops. They didn't cover any of that. So we didn't, it wasn't till later that we found out that, these guys who were way up front were off cycle. Now I could find that because you go to the app and
Mhm.
if anyone's watching, anyone on the podcast has not downloaded the IndyCar app on your phone, do it because during the race they have last pit stop, laps since
Oh
last
yeah.
pit stop, all that stuff on there, which is critical to being able to really follow the race. And Fox still continues to, I think, downplay the importance of that kind of information.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you're kind of, I mean, that's detail stuff, right? You're out in the weeds a little bit, uh, chasing down, all of that, all of those stats. But, for guys like you and me, I sit right here. The big
Yeah.
board that has all that information is right in front of me in the media center, and I'm glued to it.
Well, you need it
Watching laps
to
since,
know how the strategy is going to play out, right?
yeah, seeing laps since last pit, who's on red and who's on black, how
Right.
long has that person been on red? Gives you an idea of what's coming up and what's going to happen and where things really stand when just looking at who's in the lead might not really tell
Right.
you.
Yeah, Fox typically, their banner has obviously position, has gap
Mhm.
to the person in front of you, and then occasionally they'll flash up the tires. But I'd love for them to find a way to have the tire information up permanently and put up a
Mhm.
column of at least, every so often laps since last pit stop. How long they've
Yeah,
been running that tire. I think that would help fans, especially casual fans, more because otherwise it's like, well, how did that guy get up there? I don't get it. What's going on?
right.
More information I think is better
Well,
when
and
it
it would
comes
be better if
to
they're
fans.
if they talked about it. Don't
Yeah.
just flash it up on the screen. Um, talk about how that strategy is affecting the race.
Yeah, exactly. And what it would mean if a yellow were to come out during that. So um yeah, I think there were a couple of things like that. The other thing on the positive note on the broadcast, and you probably wouldn't have seen this because it was pre-race, was Marcus Ericsson's story and the story of his car. He's driving for, I think it's Peyton Manning's Children's Hospital is one of his sponsors,
Mhm. Yeah.
and one of they had an honorary pit crew chief was a young woman, a young girl who received a kidney transplant due to the program
Oh,
from
okay.
someone in Portland. And it was just a really
Oh,
great
yeah, yeah.
story. And one of those lovely things that racing brings to the community, I think, that
Mhm.
not enough people see is the community involvement with the teams, with the drivers and all of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they're
So
always doing stuff like that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, Santino with Home for Our Troops, and
Mhm.
they all have a passion around them that they support, whether it's directly for the team or their own foundation charity. There's a lot of that in the sport, and I think sometimes that gets overlooked when all we see is competition, and I think that's a big part of sport in general is what the sport does to lift up the communities that they you know serve, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we saw a ton of that during World Cup, right? For
Yeah,
the soccer things going on. That was just everywhere you looked, there were communities coming together and teams doing stuff for communities and so on and so forth.
yeah, yeah. So lots of good stuff today. I hope you had a good time. What was the highlight of the day for you?
Oh, for me, just watching the race and following it closely while texting back and forth with you. It was like sitting here together, watching the race. All we needed was some beer.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well,
thank you. I
that
wanted to
comes
thank
later.
you actually for for letting me be your West Coast correspondent this weekend. Really happy to do it. Great to be here, and can't wait to do it again.
Well, maybe we can both find our way out to Laguna Seca for the season ender and do something
Oh,
out there.
twist my arm, make me go to Monterey.
All right, Jeff. Well, this has been great. We do miss Kaz, but she'll be back next week, joining us from Spain. And Jeff, thank you. You are welcome on the podcast anytime. All
Excellent.
right. For Rides and Drives Team Radio, I'm Harvey. He's Jeff, and we are out.
Boom.